Evening, ladies and gents, how are you doing? It must be a slow news day today because this is the BBC homepage. We've got a couple killed in a cable car crash, a migrant dying in a channel crossing, and the third story there is this one. Toblerone dark chocolate bar discontinued in the UK. Mondelez International, which owns the brand, says it took the difficult decision to axe the bar. That's the advantage of living in the States. There's always something good to talk about. When the UK is talking about the difficult decision to axe Toblerones, we've got, 12 Bloods and Crips fight with machine guns outside a convent or something. That's what we've got out here. Anyway, there is something interesting to discuss if you focus on the death of the migrant doing the channel crossing. And it's this. Buried in the bowels of the story, because the BBC don't want to criticise Keir Starmer's government, it says in the last week, 1,871 migrants crossed the channel on small boats, with more than 705 making the journey in 12 boats on Tuesday, the highest number of arrivals on a single day so far this year. Which proves, beyond any reasonable doubt, two things are still happening in the United Kingdom. Number one, despite his claims to the contrary, Keir Starmer has done absolutely nothing about the migrant crisis. Less than nothing, less work than John Wayne's safety catch, nout, zip. And number two, the rate in which they are still importing unvetted fighting age men to the UK guarantees another atrocity to take place in short order, because at least some of them are going to be wanted criminals, known terrorists, or just, generally bad-tempered, hairy-arsed young men with high sex drives and big floppy cocks. So, you all know the MO by now. I'll read the story. I'll ruthlessly mock the androgynous, the lying, devious, sneaky, slimy, androgynous android and his filthy, corrupt, rotten to the core government. And, hopefully we'll have some fun doing it. Right then, apologies to everyone who was hoping we were going to talk about Toblerones today. Alas, there are bigger fish to fry. Story came up about an hour ago from Daniel Sexton at BBC News. A migrant dies in a channel crossing attempt. And first things first, it's just going to be another hairy-ass geezer with a big beard or something, because if it was a kid like Alan Kudry, you remember that story when Merkel said multiculturalism had failed utterly, and then the media pushed a story about one dead kid on a beach, and all of a sudden she went from multiculturalism's failed utterly, even during relatively tepid times in the 2010s, to, oh no, that story made me a little bit sad, let 50 million geezers into Europe. Hey, you remember that? That made loads of sense, didn't it? A man has died trying to cross the English Channel, Kent Police says. The RNLI said it had launched its all-weather lifeboat and a group of people were brought to Dover in a border force boat on Friday morning. Why? Why do they put this much effort in? If you're still giving money to the RNLI, don't. They're basically a taxi service for Al-Qaeda at this point, okay? Would you give money to a company that had a less interesting sounding name and just called themselves something like Lifts for Jihadis? Would you give money to that company? No? Well, then don't give any money to the RNLI then, because that's all they do these days. Think about it. It's 2025. Think about it. How many times do the RNLI go out and rescue, weather-beaten, grey-bearded old fishermen who've got into trouble in a ramshackle tugboat 8 miles off the coast of Saltburn? Has that ever happened at any point in the last 20 years? No, it hasn't. They're a taxi service for scary, hairy, unvetted men. So don't give the RNLI any money. In fact, less scrupulous people might, encourage people to rob their honesty box or something. In a statement, the RNLI said Dover's RNLI all-weather lifeboat was tasked by HM Coast Guard at 8:15 BST to an incident in the channel. Yeah, same incident as the last 500 incidents. Kent Police said they were called 10 minutes afterwards following a border force patrol responding to a medical emergency on a small boat in the English Channel. They confirmed a man had been pronounced dead. A man, eh? Weird that a man. Considering women are 51% of the population of the earth, it's a bit strange how it's very, very rarely a woman that's been pronounced dead. I wonder if we can learn anything from this data. No? Yeah. Of course not. A police spokesman said officers have launched an investigation to establish the circumstances leading to the man's death. The priority remains to establish the man's identity in order to notify his family. No, that's not a priority. He's not from here. He doesn't pay taxes here. His family probably don't care. He probably hasn't got any kids because he's probably about 19 and very, very pissed off. It's not a priority to me. That is less of a priority to me than watering the petunias. I couldn't give a single shite about this priority. I'll tell you what your priority should be, officer. Getting on the beat, pounding the tarmac, and actually looking for some criminals for a change. Because it seems to be all you twats do these days is dunk rich tea fingers into your tea, threaten people for tweeting, and then take jaunts around Europe for 2 weeks desperately seeking a man's family when said man didn't even live in the UK in the first place. The government said investigations were ongoing, so it would be inappropriate to comment further. Jesus, of course it's inappropriate. They just don't want to talk, do they? They don't want to tell you anything. Here's the meat of it. More than 9,000 people have crossed the channel on small boats so far this year. This is 42% higher than at the same point last year and 81% higher than at this stage in 2023. Brilliant. So, look at that damning statistic. Weird statistics when Keir Starmer's been gobbing off for the last 6 months, telling you not to believe your own lying eyes because they're definitely doing an amazing job stopping all the migrants coming to the country. And in the last week, another 2,000 have crossed on small boats. The highest number of arrivals on a single day so far this year. On Thursday, 211 people crossed, and more people have arrived between January and April this year than in the same 4-month period in any year since data began. Brilliant. Yep, so what does that tell you? Endless, unending lies from the jackbooted, authoritarian tyrant filth that's running the UK. That's what that tells you. All they do is lie to you. Everything gets worse and they tell you it's getting better. And then if someone like me makes a quip they don't like and they have any excuse, there's the merest sliver of a chance that they can nail your balls to the wall and jail you for 4 years for misinformation, they'll have the rozzers around your house faster than you can say granny basher. Although they're not interested in prosecuting people that do that. It's a staggering state of affairs in the UK. Mental. Unvetted fighting age men. Thousands of them every week. As if the UK has an infinite amount of space. Where are they putting them all? Surely they're going to run out of hotels within the next 6 months. Then what's going to happen? The UK hasn't even got the surface area. It's like half the size of France. And we're taking in thousands of blokes every week. But they don't care. They don't care. Because they're bent and they're in on it. I genuinely think, I've told you this before, I genuinely think no one can be this incompetent. It's got to be by design. I think the powers that be, these woke sociopaths who are desperate to turn the entire planet into one shit country, they're just doing it on purpose. They want you to be miserable, so you'll roll over and just let the government do whatever they can. Please save us. Do whatever you want. It's problem, reaction, solution. Everybody knows it. I've said this about the housing crisis. That's why they're doing it. Because they keep saying, look, capitalism's failed. No one can buy a house. When they've made it impossible to buy a house, they're importing unskilled workers. They're putting everyone on benefits. They're not letting anyone build houses because of all the red tape. Of course you can't buy a house. And when you can't, they go, oh, look at that. I think this is all part of their plan. To just hold their hands out and go, look, capitalism's failed. When we don't really live in a capitalist society, we live in this weird, authoritarian, planet-wide shit pit of their own making, and they're going to make you so miserable. You just hold your hands up and go, you know what? Commie me harder, daddy. Put us all in uniforms and stick us in the workhouses, because it's better than this. And if they're allowed to keep on doing what they're doing, it will be. It will be. Because you won't even be able to nip to the shops for a pint of milk or to take the dog round the block without getting folded over a neighbour's fence and rogered till your eyeballs bleed by a gang of swarthy blokes who you don't know from Adam. That's how bad it's getting. This is unbelievable. Anyway, I'm rambling. The point is, they've been telling you for ages that everything's getting better and they've smashed the gangs and they're getting the migrant crisis under control. They definitely aren't. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Okay, Keir Starmer is a born liar and he is beneath contempt. I live for the day. Nay, my only desire is to live long enough to see him get hauled across the coals. And it's going to get bad enough where eventually I'm convinced that's going to happen. But that's me for the day. Don't forget, I'll be streaming tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time. Be there or be square, all right? If I don't see you tomorrow, have a fantastic weekend. And remember, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. I'm off. Toodle pip. Cheers.